Hello, and welcome to the Classical Guitar Heroines podcast.
Join us as we celebrate the remarkable contributions of women to this timeless art form, featuring insightful interviews, captivating stories, and performances that showcase their talent and dedication.
I'm your host, Bridget Gerard, classical guitarist and member of the Kitchener-Waterloo Guitar Orchestra.
And I am your host, Mariette Stevenson, founder, music director, and conductor of the Kitchener-Waterloo Guitar Orchestra, and professor of guitar at Wilfrid Laurier University and the University of Waterloo.
We are excited to bring you the lives and music of these classical guitar heroines, past and present, and to share with you their enduring impact on music and our world. Welcome to the Classical Guitar Heroines podcast. Our guest today is Iranian-Canadian guitarist Bahar Ossareh. Bahar Ossareh, a captivating Iranian-Canadian classical guitarist dedicated to sharing the enchanting world of guitar music with her audiences. Renowned for her warm sound, soulful performances, and innovative programs, she has become a prominent figure in the classical music scene and is a passionate ambassador of Persian guitar music. In 2016, Bahar made Canada her home and has since graced numerous stages as both a soloist and chamber musician. She has collaborated with esteemed organizations and orchestras such as the Guitar Society of Toronto, Classical Guitar Society of Calgary, Cathedral Bluffs Symphony Orchestra, Austin Classical Guitar, and more. As a performer and lecturer, Bahar has participated in international festivals, including the Miami International Guitar Festival, the University of Toronto New Music Festival, and the Hamilton Guitar Festival. Bahar's debut solo album, released in 2025, entitled Variations, delves into the theme and variations formed through a wide array of styles, traditions, and time periods. From the expressive sweep of romantic opera to the evocative melodies of Japanese and Finnish folk music, and from structured classical forms to free contemporary writing, each piece begins with a simple musical idea that evolves. Variations, with some unfolding in subtle ways, while others transform dramatically. This collection features the premiere of Bahar's original composition, Nava'i, Variations on a Persian Folk Song. This collection offers a deeply personal, cross-cultural interpretation of variation, embodying the album's broader exploration of how composers reshape melody into new forms of expression. Variation 2025 was funded by the generous support of the Ontario Arts Council. One of Bahar's recent projects is Little Heart, a children's opera based on a Persian story where she arranged and performed the guitar parts. Released in 2020 by the Canadian Music Centre, Centre Disques, the project was funded by the Toronto Council for the Arts. Bahar Ossareh proudly holds a Doctor of Musical Arts degree from the University of Toronto and has earned prestigious awards and scholarships, including the Distinguished Eaton Graduate Fellowship and Ellie Kastner Graduate Fellowship. Prior to her doctoral studies, Bahar earned a Master of Music degree in Classical Guitar Performance from the University of Art, Tehran, solidifying her foundation as an accomplished classical guitarist. As an active artist and instructor with the Tone-Based team, Bahar continues to contribute to the world's largest community of classical guitarists. Here is Bahar Ossareh performing Minyo, Variations on a Japanese Folk Song by Carlo Domeniconi from her album Variations.
That was Bahar Ossareh performing Minyo, variations on a Japanese folk song by Carlo Dominiconi from her new album Variations. Welcome, Bahar, to the Classical Guitar Heroines podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is our pleasure to have you here. You were born in Iran. What was your first exposure to the classical guitar?
I started music when I was 5 and I attended classes. They were called Orff music. They were like early childhood music classes. And then I was introduced to classical guitar in one of our classes when they brought in musicians to show us different instruments. After we finished our program, we needed to choose an instrument. I also listened to this cassette tape by Narciso Yepes. He played popular music from Spain because my dad is a music lover and he had so many cassette tapes. So this one was my favorite. And then after seeing somebody introduce guitar in those classes, I thought, okay, guitar is my choice. And then I started playing the guitar when I was 10.
There have been classical guitarists who've been very active in Iran since the 1950s, starting with the Spanish guitarist Ignacio Aguilar when he moved to Tehran and eventually founding the guitar program at the Tehran Conservatory. Can you chat about how that influenced the development of classical guitar in Iran?
Sure. Yeah. As you said, we had guitar being used in other genres like popular music and jazz. But then after Ignacio Aguilar moved to Tehran, he helped founding this program at the conservatory and he added guitar pedagogy to the curriculum. After that, more classical musicians became interested in picking up the guitar as an academic instrument and not just used by popular music. In 1970s, there was this other pioneer of classical guitar in Iran, Bahar Ossareh, who also lives in Toronto now. And he's a great composer. I'm in touch with him, and I'm going to perform some of his pieces in my new album.
Wonderful.
He helped actually shaping classical guitar even broader because he was composing pieces that are using Persian elements in his classical music. So it was kind of him filling the gap between classical guitar and Iran's music, which was more interesting for people at the time. And then by the revolution, like Islamic Revolution in 1979, I wouldn't say completely stopped, but they were a little bit challenging. Learning and playing music became a little bit, I would say, forbidden, but people were still playing it. And then early 1980s, music and learning music and playing it became more relevant to Iran's government rules. Then that's where I actually started music. I was lucky enough to be born after that period.
Right.
Yeah, and then as time goes by in universities and in after school classes, people became more interested in picking up their instrument. Guitar was also included. And we didn't have the Bachelor of Art in Guitar Performance at the beginning when the music program started in universities, but later on they added Bachelor and Masters, which is where I actually graduated.
Wow. So you were very fortunate to have been born at the time you were born to be able to access all of that opportunity.
Yeah, but it was actually still challenging because when I started, I didn't have access to a smaller size guitar. As a little girl, I started with a full size guitar because it wasn't easy to find something. So it was a challenge still. And I remember even for those ORF classes, it wasn't an official class. It was in a kindergarten. They didn't have the space to do that. And it was like kind of like underground, but not fully. But it wasn't fully legal. So people were stressed if government will just stop them from doing those activities, which is sad. But I am so glad things have changed since my childhood. But it was challenging just attending a music class. Even at the beginning, after revolution, to give you this fact, musical instruments were like weapons. To carry a musical instrument, you had to have this piece of paper as a permission to carry a musical instrument because of those strict religious rules, which I don't know where they got them from, but I'm so glad things have changed recently.
Excellent.
Wow. There have been a number of women who have played a key role in Iran's classical guitar community, including Lily Afshar, Karina Kimiyai, and Gulfem Khayyam. Were any of these women role models for you when you were a student?
Definitely Lily Afshar was a role model. And then she was actually the first woman in the world who graduated with a doctorate in guitar.
That's right.
So that was really inspiring. I grew up listening to her albums. Golfam Khayyam is also a very close friend of mine. So yeah, so we are friends. She's also very inspiring. She's a great composer and she also merges Persian elements with guitar music. And she's a very successful instructor in Switzerland. And she also performs and composes a lot of fusion music on her guitar. I know her music is very much popular right now. And I know William Cannengeiser has played some of her pieces. He's very interested. And so it's not just in Europe, but in North America, people play her music as well.
Very cool. This is our guest, Bahar Ossareh, performing variations on a Finnish folk song by Brian Johansson from her new album, Variations.
You just heard our lovely guest, Bahar Ossareh, performing variations on a Finnish folk song by Brian Johansson from her album Variations. You are listening to the Classical Guitar Heroines podcast. So while you were still in Iran, you founded the Iranian Kids Guitar Orchestra, which had upwards of 24 members. How did you become interested in guitar orchestras, and are they popular in Iran?
I remember as a kid, it was so much fun to play in orchestras and little or bigger ensembles. So that was so much fun. And I remember I learned a lot. For me, playing in the ensemble was the ultimate goal of playing. Unfortunately, guitar is a solo instrument. So when I was attending orchestras as a performer, sometimes I was asked to bring my recorder flute because there was not much guitar parts. And then even if you wanted to play the guitar, there wasn't like something arranged for the guitar. You just play this single line melody. And then guitar, guitar is not loud. So I thought, no, I really need to do something when I grow up. Then at high school, with some of my friends, they played other instruments. So I decided to just arrange some like simple music. It was even more fun now that I had some knowledge about the guitar and strumming, which make it louder. When I became a teacher in my first job at that music school, I had so many students and I started pairing them in duos or creating little ensembles for them to learn. I realized I have enough students to found this orchestra. And I just put the announcement, and so many students, not only my younger students, but even adult students became interested in doing that. But I had to put an age limit because I wanted to have a kids orchestra.
Right. Sure.
So that's how it was shaped. I won't say like it was popular at the time in Iran, but I think if not the first, it was one of the first kids guitar orchestra in Iran when I founded it.
Oh, that's lovely.
Wow.
So you arranged and composed several pieces for this kids orchestra. And where did your interest for composition begin? And are those pieces published in case any of our listeners might be interested in purchasing them?
I composed my first music when I was 15, and sometimes I still play that piece. It's like a very cute small piece, but it's when you learn guitar and you play Tarega's pieces, it just inspires you to write some music on your own. Then again, like I said, when I started in high school, that was my first exposure to arrangement. There, I remember with one of my friends, we sat and wrote a piece for our little ensemble. So I think that was first spark. Then yes, writing and arranging music for the orchestra helped me a lot. I don't compose much. I have maybe a handful of pieces for orchestra and then some more for solo or duos. But unfortunately, I haven't published any of them yet. Like you want them to be perfectly polished before you put them on your website for people. But I promise in near future, there will be more files for people to just download or if they want to purchase.
I think that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, you moved to Canada in 2016, and we've had the Cuban-Canadian guitarist Ileana Matos as a guest on the podcast, and she talked about how challenging the transition was for her. And I was curious, was it difficult for you as well?
Immigration is not easy, but for me, actually, it went very smoothly. I was curious. I was happy back home. Nothing was wrong with it. But I was just thinking, like, I'm going to give this chance to myself, see if things might be different in a different country. And Canada, why not? It feels like home. And I can tell you, it felt like home from the very first month to me. And
wonderful.
Because you guys are amazing. Like you're the best country to welcome immigrants. This is so true. And I've talked to many friends. Like I have friends around the world. Like in my generation, immigration was something really right now. This generation, they stay because things are a lot easier back home in many ways, like for their activity, just like the thing I told you about how I started at classic music. But my generation, a lot of people just immigrated to study abroad and then they stayed. I moved to Canada as a permanent resident, so that made things easier for me. And then I found here there was this opportunity for me to grow as a musician and as a woman. because we are not too many, right?
That's true.
And it was so welcoming. And I started with those library performances, as you remember. And that just helped me in the first few months to connect to the community. Later on, I joined Guitar Society of Toronto in their activities, and then University of Toronto, and things started to shape from there. And in other ways, actually, moving to Canada was so inspiring to me because I learned how to teach in English. So that was a good challenge. And this is me. I thrive in challenge. If things become so peaceful, I'm like, something is missing. So I need to just make a new challenge. So for me, teaching little kids, for example, how to move their fingers like this, I learned English before I moved to Canada, but it was like a challenge, which I enjoyed a lot. And I used to tell them like, hey, I'm your guitar teacher. You are my English teacher. So this helped us just connect better. So English wasn't like a big challenge, but still when you work, you need to be fluent, especially for kids. And we do have a lot of Persian stores here, a lot of Persian communities here, which I would say I don't miss even any foods because I have enough grocery stores and I have enough choices. So my parents used to think like, oh yeah, when she moves, she will miss this. It's like, the only thing I miss is you, but anything else we have here, like we have a lot of communities here, grocery stores. So it was very exciting for me coming to Canada. And it's been 10 years now almost.
Wow. Wow, that's just flown because I remember meeting you and 10 years ago. Oh my God.
Yes.
That's gone by really fast.
We were little girls that time, right?
Sure. Oh, well, this is the Scherzo Presto Trio from Sonata in D minor by Ferdinand Rabai, performed by our lovely guest, Bahar Ossareh.
You were just listening to Bahar Ossareh's recording of the Scherzo Presto Trio from Sonata in D minor by Ferdinand Rabai from her album Variations. You are listening to the Classical Guitar Heroines podcast. A project you were involved with in 2020 as the children's opera called Little Heart. Can you talk about the opera and your role in the project?
Sure. So when I moved to Canada, I reached out to some of Iranian composers, and Afarin Mansouri, a friend of mine who is the composer of Little Heart, was one of them. We had this meeting together. She wanted to do some collaborations together. And this opera, she wrote it, I think, a few years before we met. And she said, I wrote it, but I never had the chance to perform it or record it. The piece was originally written for piano and soprano, and she gave it to me, see if there's a possibility to arrange it for guitar. The story is actually based on a kid's book called To Whom Should I Give My Heart? It's a very beautiful story about a little girl who's wondering to whom she should give her heart. It's very inspiring. She made the story into a libretto, and she gave the text and the piano score to me. And I was sitting in my room thinking, like, if I want to turn it into a solo guitar, there will be a lot missing in it because there's a lot of chords and texture that will be missed. So I thought about it. I tried the first movement on solo guitar, and I realized, no, there's need to be another guitar. I don't want to drop so many notes. I don't want to leave out these beautiful textures, especially beside the soprano. We need another voice because some parts we can involve the dad. So I called her immediately saying like, hey, Afarin, I think we can do some changes to this. How about me arranging it for a guitar duo and also add a baritone? And she thought about it. It's like, yeah, that's a cool idea. So we worked together. We changed the parts to 4 performers now, baritone, soprano, and 2 guitars. After I finished arranging, she also asked me to perform and record. And it was a fun project to record with myself. It's a little bit challenging. And then because of that, I just recorded guitar separately. And then our singers joined and they just sang. So we didn't record it all at once. It just added layers. And we also have this lovely narrator. At the time, I think she was maybe 9 or 10. She is the main character of the story. So yeah, it was a challenge. But like I said, I loved the challenge to listen to myself playing guitar 1, and now I'm adding guitar 2. And sometimes it's like, yeah, this player is too slow. Can we just take this again? So we had so much fun. And then I was like, who is this player? So it was kind of challenging, and it's not the easiest when you have to play with the metronome sometimes, but the tempo change, you can't really make it sound natural because you're playing over somebody else who is actually yourself. But yeah, I think it turned out nice. And then we added some sound effect. And it's a lovely work for kids and even for adults to listen to, I think. I really like that project.
Wow. And you have a new recording titled Variations. Yes. And this is your first full-length solo album. And I was wondering if you could talk about the music that you chose for this recording, because you also have one of your own compositions included in it, which is, I think, very exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Usually this theme and variation, we hear it everywhere. And I think when we want to make the audience get familiar with some new material, they need some repetition. And I think this is a great idea of using theme and variation. My idea at first was to play pieces that are underplayed, underappreciated, and most of the pieces in this album don't have too many recordings. For example, Rabai, to my knowledge, to that date when I was recording it, mine is the second recording of this piece. Johansson has more recording. The Cruise Bring piece, she just played it once, and I'm the second recording of that. Wow. So I think to introduce new pieces, one of the best ways is to just do theme and variation, so people can have the chance to hear it several times, but in different textures. And it's so much fun for the performer as well, because you see how this theme evolves. So that's how I put everything together, finding those variations was so much fun. I got to know a lot of new pieces that I just put them on my archive for my next programs and for my next album. There's so much out there that people don't play. And I think like we should look at those pieces that are not played, because of famous pieces, there are tons of recordings. But
Agreed.
to just offer something to the world, I think we should just go back and dig deeper in those untouched programs, you know.
100%. Yeah, it makes it, I think, also very interesting for guitarists who are sitting in a concert and listening to new music, or listening
Exactly.
to a new music on a new recording. It's not just the same old, Asturias.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes having some familiar pieces will help the audience to feel connected.
Oh, sure.
So
Yeah.
I always have this mix, but I also think including traditional or folk music is a good idea, because a lot of people can relate to the stories behind them. That's why I chose Minio, variation on Finnish folk song, and I included mine. So these are the three pieces that are based on folk songs. Minio is the Japanese folk song, the Finnish is based on a Finnish folk song, and mine is Navai is the Persian folk song. So you, at the same time, you are introducing folk music while some people can connect, even though they haven't heard those themes, but because those themes are folk song, people can relate to them easily.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's so true. So speaking of which, here is Bahar performing her composition, Navayi, variations on a Persian folk song from her latest release, Variations.
That was our guest, Bahar Ossareh, performing her composition Navai, Variations on a Persian Folk Song, from her latest release, Variations. You are listening to the Classical Guitar Heroines podcast. You are also a tone bass teacher. For listeners who are not familiar with tone bass, what is it and how did you become involved with them?
Homebase is a universal platform for classical musicians. They started in 2017 or 2018. They were first just for classical guitarists.
Mm-hmm.
There's this educational material in their website, and then you can just watch videos, and there are lots of content for beginners and for advanced players. So I met them on Facebook the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized we can collaborate. So I reached out to them, and Chris was the person I reached out to, and he liked my idea of, I think my first lesson was on memorization. So they liked my idea of giving like a memorization lesson for classical guitarists. And then we started from there. At the beginning, I was responsible for recording and editing my own video. So I just started with that. But then later on, for the later videos, they hired someone and they booked a studio in Toronto.
Oh, wow.
And then everything became more professional. So that was so much fun to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
We have some plans to do new lessons, but it's for a few years. So I need to reach out to them and see if they still want to do those lessons or do some new material. But it's one of my like next plans to make more content for them.
Wonderful.
You have a growing to-do list.
Exactly.
Well, there are many musicians who do other things besides music. For example, the local community orchestra where Bridget and I live recently had some of its members interviewed by a local paper, and they discussed having side gigs like hair design and working in administration. And as well, there are classical guitarists like the great Margarita Scarpa and Emre Sabanjwalu who have degrees in mathematics. And there's Eric Pearson, I think originally from Texas, who studied physics, as well as the fantastic rock guitarist Brian May, who has a PhD in astrophysics, and the jazz singer Diane Nalini, who has a PhD in material science and is also professor of physics at the University of Guelph. And that's just like to name but a few. You also have a background in engineering and are a successful software developer. I'm curious, are there similarities with music and engineering? And are there any skills as a musician that are a benefit or necessity in engineering?
Definitely. This is so interesting. So let me tell you the story how I became engineer but musician. So like I said, I started music when I was 5 and I loved playing the guitar. But at the same time, I was good at math and physics. So my parents thought I'll become something in that field. And then after I started high school, every year I asked my parents, can I go to music school? They said like, no, your math is good. You can't make money with music. Just keep it on the side. I kept just asking them and they kept saying no. So for my undergrad, while I was playing the guitar, I did kind of electrical engineering for my undergrad and I didn't like it, honestly. So I didn't do like very well at school, but I was just involved with a lot of musical activities at the time. So I finished it and I just gave them my degree. Here, this is for you. Now I'm going to just go live my life the way I want. And it was a kind of tricky switch from an undergrad in engineering to a master's in music. But like I said, I love challenges, right? So And it worked. I remember at the audition, they say like, but your undergrad is in electrical engineering. Maybe you should play electrical guitar. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I started teaching and then I moved to Canada with my master's. Then I started my doctorate. I always had this interest in tech and software, which is different from electrical engineering. Then for my thesis, I did this multidisciplinary research on how to create this application for non-guitarist composers. Because as you know, it is difficult for someone who doesn't know how chords work on the guitar to write something playable for the guitar. And as you can see, there's always collaborations between a composer and a guitarist to make those chords playable. And there's always a lot of notes that you have to leave out if you're playing something by a non-guitarist composer. So I thought, why not? And then just remember, when I started my doctorate, there was no AI or chat GPT. So there wasn't much of these apps that we see these days. Oh my God, we were just talking about 6 years ago, how things have evolved in the last couple of years. But happened to find this multidisciplinary course where we teamed up with programmers. And in our class, we were like lawyers, nutritionists, physicians, and I was just a musician teamed up with 2 programmers. I did have some knowledge in coding because of my background. So we just worked and I had this coding thing as like just my personal interest. So we started working on this app. And then there I thought, okay, maybe this is a side gig for me. But then COVID happened. My plan were to become a full-time musician and keep my coding on the side. But then I had to swap these because after COVID, a lot of concerts canceled, all my classes, everything. And I realized, okay, maybe if I have a daytime job as a programmer, then I can just stay a musician because I don't have to teach that much. I keep it as something to pay my bills and I can invest in my music without worrying about my income. So that was my side of story. I know like a lot of musicians make it. They teach, but I thought, okay, I have this. And then this app showed me a lot. I loved coding. So that's how my journey started. And to answer your question, yes, there's a lot between math and music, as you know. So I attended this course where we had, it was again at the University of Toronto. It was a boot camp. We were 3 musicians in class. And then all of us had a different understanding or maybe a better understanding of how codes work because we had this idea of looking at the sheet music, it doesn't make sense to other people. Well, we make it make sense, right? With sound. So code is kind of like the same. It has structure. When you look at it, it's just gobbledygook, right? What are these? But you make sense of it as something that has an application. So I think the relation between coding, math, and music helped a lot of people, not just me. I know like a lot of engineers, they play music and it helps like their mind. For me, it's a virtual craft when I code, and guitar is an actual craft when you create something, but they have a lot in common. Yeah.
That's fantastic. From what you're describing, there's a lot of creativity that goes into the creation. I mean, obviously you're creating something, but it's not just about putting code together. There's a lot of creativity and a lot of problem solving that you need to put in. And music is fantastic for just training how to problem solve. You know, if you can't play a note, like you got to figure out how to do it, right? It forces you to problem solve.
Exactly. And you have to make sense of something that doesn't look like plain text, right? It's different shapes. And also you need to sit there and practice in both. Coding is not different. It's like a new language. It's like music. And then you need to sit there and practice. So as musicians, we have the discipline to just practice until we make sense out of it.
That's true. Lots of self-discipline. Well, this is fascinating. And unfortunately, we're coming to the end. Bahar, do you have any final thoughts on women and guitar?
So on women and classical guitar, I'm sure other guests have talked extensively. I'm just going to say I am so happy that more women are now emerging in classical guitar because it was previously dominated by men. Just as a fact, for University of Toronto DMA guitar program, I was the first woman. I'm glad my friend Yelitsa is the next. we should go out and perform the guitar in our own way and with our own emotions and interpretations.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Excellent. Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Where can our audience discover more of your music?
Audience can find both of my albums on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and all other live stream platforms.
And you have a YouTube channel as well, and they can find
Yes,
that
yes,
there.
and my own website.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for being our guest today. You have been wonderful.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's such an honor for me.
Oh, it's our pleasure, Bahar.
Thank
Our
you.
pleasure.
Here is our lovely guest, Bahar, with introduction and variations on a theme from Der Freischütz by Carol Krayenwanger from her recording Variations.
That was today's guest, Bahar Ossareh, performing introduction and variations on a theme from Der Freischütz by Carol Krayenwanger. We would like to thank the wonderful Bahar Ossareh for speaking with us today. Follow the Classical Guitar Heroines podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. If you enjoyed what you heard, please click the like button and don't forget to subscribe to our Substack newsletter for updates. If you love our podcast and want to support us, consider visiting our Ko-fi account or visiting our online store at Redbubble. Every contribution, no matter the amount, helps us to stay independent and keep the podcast accessible to everyone. You can find the link on our Facebook and Instagram pages. And remember, if you are a woman that plays classical guitar, you too are a classical guitar heroine. Thank you for joining us on the Classical Guitar Heroines podcast.